Hi everyone, this is Anna of Crafty Anna Studio. Welcome to my channel. In this video, I will be showing you how to create these backgrounds for your cards. The technique is called Emboss Resist. There are many kinds of Emboss Resist techniques. In this tutorial, I will be showing you how to do it with reactive inks. I will explain later on in the video what these inks are and what makes them different from regular dye inks. But before I get started on the technique, I am going to heat emboss my card panel. I will be using this beautiful cling stamp from Hero Arts called Everything Flowers. Here I have my Misty stamping platform. I will also be using this sticky mat to keep my card panel from shifting. I learned this tip from Jennifer McGuire. I will also be using some inexpensive watercolor paper for this technique. First, I position the cling stamp on top of my card panel. Then, I close the door of the Misty to pick up the stamp. By the way, I removed the foam insert of the Misty to accommodate the thicker cling stamp. I will prep my card panel first with my anti-static powder bag. I tap the paper gently, making sure the powder is well distributed. I apply embossing ink generously onto the stamp, tapping it until I got good coverage. Then, I closed the door of my Misty onto the card panel and gave it a good and even press with a dry eraser. Another tip I picked up from Jennifer. I removed the panel from the Misty and gave it a generous sprinkle with white embossing powder. Gave it a gentle tap to remove the excess. Then, I funneled the rest of the powder back into the container. I let my heat gun get good and hot for about 30 seconds before taking it onto the card panel, starting at the back before bringing it out to the front. This prevents the cardstock from warping and also keeps the embossing powder from flying all over the place. After heat embossing, I took the panel and taped it down onto my glass mat on the top and bottom using washi tape. We will be using a lot of water, so this will prevent warping. These are the reactive inks from Hero Arts. I have them in minis kept inside this tin. For this project, I will use Early Dawn, Morning Mist, Thistle, Blue Water, and Sea Glass. These inks were included in some Hero Arts kits. I took the Early Dawn ink pad and applied it directly to the paper. I started with the smaller flowers, using the corner of the ink pad to get into the tight spaces. Then I took the next color, Morning Mist, and did the same, swiping the ink pad in areas to highlight the pattern of each flower. Then with Thistle, I swiped the bigger flowers and did the same with the rest of the inks. The composition of these inks are such that they react with water, which means they behave a lot like watercolors. You can ink blend with them too, then spray them to create some wonderful effects. After laying down the inks, I took my bottle of homemade shimmer spray, gave it a good shake, and spritzed it generously over the panel. I made sure to saturate the paper with water. Then I took a paintbrush and used it to move the colors around a little. Then with a paper towel, I dabbed off the excess water which started to pool around the edges. I gently removed the washi tape and set the panel aside to dry. Here is another card panel I made using the same inks. I'm a little impatient and decided to help the drying process along and used the paper towel to pick up the excess ink. This also creates a softer look to the background. I will repeat the process again, this time using a monochromatic color palette. If you don't have mini ink cubes, you can also use the regular sized ones and use the corners to apply color to the smaller areas. Here are all the backgrounds I made with this technique. This is the monochromatic one in blue, and I made another one in pink. Here is one I made, which I added a chartreuse for an additional pop of color. Then I also attempted one in a slimline version. You can see a line where the stamps connected, but I can always cover them up with an image or sentiment. Now it's time to turn this background into a card. First, I cut my panel down to 5 1/4 by 4 inches. Then with my paper trimmer, I trimmed off 1 inch from the top. I put back my card panel and trimmed off another 3/4 inch. Here's my quick tip to assemble the card to make sure everything is lined up. I put the pieces I cut off back to its original positions. Then, I used some washi tape to temporarily keep them stuck together. Then, I turned the panel over and applied glue to the upper part of the bottom panel and the lower part of the upper panel. I took a strip of acetate that was slightly wider than 3/4 inches and gently pressed it onto the area with the glue, covering the piece I had cut out. I then removed the washi tape that held them together. Then I removed the piece I had cut out earlier. With a paper trimmer, I cut off the excess acetate strip on either side of the panel. This created a little window and offered some stability to the die-cut sentiment I will add later on. To create added dimension to the sentiment, I have another tip I discovered by accident. Here, I am using my Mini Blossom die-cutting machine. I took the Love die from the Hero Arts Love Stamp and Cut set and used a scrap piece of white cardstock to die-cut about 3 pieces. Because this die can be a little finicky to adhere together, I left the die cut stuck to the cutting plate. I added glue on the die cut and adhered the other Love die cut on top. Pressed it down for a couple of seconds, then gently lifted it off the cutting plate. I added a generous amount of foam tape to the back of my panel and adhered it onto a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches aqua card base. I finished it off by adding my die-cut love sentiment and additional stamped sentiments from the same stamp set. Here is a final look at my finished card. I decided to use a contrasting color and use the white love as a shadow to make it stand out a little more. I stamped the word "Sending You" with blue water ink and adhered it to the left of the love sentiment. Here is another card I created. This time, the window was cut at the bottom of the panel. The love sentiment is cut from aqua cardstock and the sentiment "You More" stamped with thistle ink. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you were inspired. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed my video and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Till next time, bye!